Hello and welcome to another episode of Interview with the Schizophrenic. I'm your host, Duncan Samrasinger, and today I'd like to welcome Travis from Texas in the United States. He's 28 years old and he's diagnosed with schizophrenia. Hello, Travis. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine. Not too bad. Just had a little holiday, but going back to work tomorrow. But that's should be fine. How's the COVID situation in where you are?
It's okay. Mostly everybody wears masks.
Yeah, that's cool. I think masks are the way forward. Um, but yeah, I think it's difficult for them because they want people to go back to work, and there could be a second spike.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I'm worried about too is the second spike.
Yeah, so I think that is probably likely to happen, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Okay,
Okay.
so let's get started. What I would like to ask you is if you tell me about how your mental health journey began, um, what your first symptoms were, how old were you when it happened, how you
Mm.
got the diagnosis, did you go to hospital, that sort of things. If you like to talk about that.
Okay. So about 2 years ago, when I was 26 years old, I started having what I guess we call an enlightenment. Like I was sitting at work and I would just start thinking about the most random things, and my mind would present to me these like huge like leaps of like beyond logic. Just essentially, it came out to be that like I had come to the conclusion that I was God, and that
Yep.
yeah, and that like the whole universe was basically revolving around me. That's where
Mm-hmm.
the solipsism began. Um, and then after that, about a couple weeks later, I was working and I turned around and I saw my coworker literally just teleport right in front of me. He moved from one location to another without
Yeah.
any time. Yeah, without any time in between. And
So, what
so
was your explanation
from
for that?
I I felt part of the enlightenment thing was that I thought I had like figured out that the universe was a simulation and that there were
Yeah.
multiple parallel dimensions and stuff like that. And yeah, so my whole thing was that he must have like unlocked something within the matrix. And my other thing was that everybody could teleport. Like if I could see my coworker teleport, then I could teleport. That's what set off a bunch of delusions.
It could have been you could have dissociated for like
Yeah,
20 seconds or something. It's
I don't.
possible. I mean, that's like a psychiatric explanation. Um, but yeah, so
I,
carry on with your story anyway.
yeah, I've thought about it extensively. Like, I came to the conclusion that I must have just hallucinated,
Yeah.
um, because like as cool as it is, it's impossible to teleport. But
Yeah.
so from then on, I didn't have much in the way of voices. Not until about a year ago. I just like a few things. Everything felt like a story. It my whole entire life just felt like one big ass like storybook. There was like foreshadowing. There's climaxes. It was crazy, like the amount of continuity that there would be between the multiple days and like my delusions, and how
Mm.
the continuity between like what I thought my roommates were saying when they actually weren't. Because one of the big things was that my roommates would comment on my thoughts, or they would comment um, on like the general story, quote unquote, that was going on at the time. It was really weird.
It sounds weird, man.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Uh,
mean, there's yeah. I mean, I guess that's all part of the illness, isn't it? Like you can have like synchronicities
oh yeah,
where, do you know what I mean? Where what you're thinking and what happens in real life is kind of like
coincide.
coincides. Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
would get that a lot.
Yeah, and that's like that's not imagination. That actually happens.
Mm,
So it's kind of a bizarre experience, really, isn't it?
yeah.
Because
I,
it's we're not imagining it. You know, this actually happens. You
mm,
know.
yeah. One of the weird things to me was unbidden images. I would just get images of, and I had like, you know how like you can usually recall an image in your brain and it will just like come to you, but you know that you did it, so there's no worry. It
Yeah.
would just happen to me. I would just be sitting there and I'd all of a sudden get an image of something. Usually it's about like a white box or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that I have a similar that a similar thing happens to me. It doesn't happen often, but
Mm.
occasionally I'll get an image or I'll get a scene in my head, and it'll be of somebody in real life, or like somebody laughing, or somebody, somebody. Do you know what I mean? It's like it'll be almost like an excerpt of somebody's life,
Yeah.
um, and I don't know what it means, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a strange one for sure, definitely.
Definitely is. Do you get hypnagogic illusions as well?
So is that nighttime hallucinations?
Yeah, when you're about to fall asleep.
I don't really know.
Well,
My hallucinations are during the day usually.
yeah. Mine are usually at night, just before falling asleep. I would like hear a voice or something like that. That's lately. Um, so back to the story.
Yeah.
Um, it took about, I don't know, I would say about a year of me just going through life, thinking that I was part of like a space time. I was able to travel between parallel dimensions because like
Mm.
of the stuff that I had been through. I remember my coworker said to me one night, "You're not supposed to talk about it." So I assumed that it was like a rite of passage kind of thing that everybody went through what I was going through. And
Yeah.
turns out he either was talking about something else or hallucinated. I
Yeah.
find I find that a lot of the time, if it's incongruent with like actual like what he would say, then most of the time I probably hallucinated.
Mm. Yeah.
Um,
I mean that's a bit. It's a
Going.
that it's like Fight Club or something. Nobody talks about it, but it happens. Like it happens to everybody, but we don't talk about it. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, well, they're kind of in it, but you're not really in on the whole story.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of thing. Yeah, because I mean, I just thinking back, going back about 18 years. I was on a flight back from Germany, and I thought everybody's telepathic and it's normal, but they just haven't told me about it.
Yes,
You
that's
know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah, that's
You know
exactly
what
what
I
I
mean?
was thinking.
Do you know what I mean? I just thought, oh yeah, it must be just normal, but nobody, for some reason, nobody's told me,
Yeah.
and it was like,
The leaps of logic that your brain can come up with,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
nuts.
yeah,
Yeah. So about a year ago is when I started getting voices. It wasn't bad at first. It was just very perplexing. Like it would say wrong when I would be in the middle of doing something and I would be thinking about it, and all of a sudden I hear it's like somebody whisper in my ear wrong or something like that. And uh, then it became, I called it, it was like Highlander. There could be only one. It was
yeah,
like yeah, for some reason that was like, it became an obsession for me. I like started falling into this weird little hole I made for myself where I was like thinking about basically it's magical thoughts, like your thoughts can have impact on the world around you or whatnot.
mm,
And so like I came up with this entire system of anti-hacking, so because like in my mind it was mind hackers, that's why I was experiencing
yeah.
the
That's right.
illusions.
Yeah, that was my first experience. I thought my mind had been hacked.
Yeah, it
That's
feels like that.
yeah, and they've gained entry to your mind, and they can do what they want. They can screw around your life and stuff. But
Yeah.
that's going back a long time now. But that's one of my first explanations was mine. Yeah, getting hacked. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought there were space-time police too. It was nuts. Space-time lords. I thought that was a thing,
Mm.
just because of the synchronicity kind of deal.
Yeah.
It made the most logical sense in my mind, and yeah. So after I started getting voices, it wasn't too bad, but I wasn't being medicated. After a while, I started getting disorganized thinking, and
Mm.
eventually it got to be word salad. I would just be trying to go to sleep, and all of a sudden, my brain's like throwing a bunch of words at me that have no logical sense. I couldn't decipher it even if I wanted to.
No.
And after that, I was like, okay, this is enough. I got to go talk to my psychiatrist.
Mm.
Because at the time I was seeing a psychiatrist, and I hadn't told her. I was just seeing her for ADHD. And then I went ahead and told her, and she asked me like a series of questions. It came down to the reason why she gave me a schizophrenic diagnosis was because of my the thought broadcasting. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and it was pretty bad too because like not only would I have thought broadcasting, but people would actually like turn to me and like comment on the thought that I just had. Like, yeah, they would move their mouth and everything.
Yeah.
It was nuts. Like I didn't know that the brain could do that.
I mean that's got to be some sort of hallucination, right? I mean,
Yeah, obviously, but
mm,
when it's happening to you, you have no other explanation other than they
no.
can read my thoughts and they're able
Yeah.
to hear what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I don't know if this happened to you, but a few years ago, like like weird stuff would happen. Like I'd be eating, say, my cereal, and I'd puff out my cheeks because I was but the way I was eating it. And I look at the television, and Homer Simpson's doing exactly the same thing.
What? That's crazy.
He's like eating food, puffing out his cheeks, and just like it's just weird stuff like that.
I think it has something to do with the subconscious. The subconscious is a really powerful thing.
Mm,
That's my idea because like I've also had dreams of the future, and I was listening to your last podcast, and you
yeah,
guys talked about that a little bit. But in my case, I remember I had a dream, like a hypnagogic illusion of me being
mm,
on an airplane. And at the time, I was like convinced that there were space time police, right? So I was spending all of my time trying to interrupt time, like, being super random, like not
yeah.
thinking about what I was going to do before I did it. So that way, when it would impact time.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You've. It's weird. It's weird the way it's like I remember. I think Frank was talking about it. He was my first interviewee, and he said it's like training because
Uh,
because when you go for a schizophrenia, like chronic schizophrenia, you kind of fighting against this strange enemy.
mm,
And I remember I used to think it was like the Borg or something, so I thought I was trying to do
uh,
random shit just to confuse them.
yeah.
And I remember I thought it was virtual reality, so I got off on a ferry because I thought that the most graphic intensive um, thing would be like water. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
water
yeah,
and the
yeah.
waves, and the
That's
computer wouldn't
hilarious.
be able to handle it. And it was just like
Yeah.
bizarre stuff that happened like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned training because I hallucinated what like I worked in a kitchen, right? And so our tickets would come up and
Yeah.
I hallucinated one of the tickets saying training mode done or something like that. And yeah, that was like the very beginning of my psychotic break. It literally said training mode. It definitely felt like that though, and
Yeah.
it was wild. But
Mm.
yeah, the dreams about the future, like I had a dream and I did my best to try to interrupt time, but I ended up in the same exact spot with the same exact circumstances anyway. And then I remember thinking, "Oh, I had this dream last night," and the guy who I was supposed to sit next to turned around and said, "That's the truth right there." It was the freakiest thing, man.
Yeah, I know. It's just bizarre the way, like when you're inside that, when you're like from my experience, it was about only about 10 years ago that I got in contact with other people who were suffering with schizophrenia. So I thought I was not alone anymore. But
Mm,
when you feel as if it's just you,
mm.
it can be really intense. You know,
Oh yeah,
when you think it's just me and I'm going through this strange shit.
it
and
feels
nobody.
like you versus the world.
Yeah, it's just so weird. But when somebody else makes a joke about, oh yeah, the FBI were had a van outside my flat again last night, and you think, yeah, I was thinking like, and it's like, yeah, that's it's not just me. Somebody else is thinking about this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's really helpful. That definitely, yeah. So
Yeah,
what?
I understand what you mean.
Yeah,
So, my mom at the time was also going through schizophrenia.
I really.
Yeah, she was diagnosed not too long after I was. She was way worse than I was, though.
Mm,
She was catatonic. She wouldn't respond to like me trying to talk to her. She wouldn't. She would just like have conversations with people that weren't there.
mm,
She like was losing weight, becoming ultra skinny.
mm,
And then finally, we were able to get her on Abilify, and that helped her, and that also helped me out too. I was prescribed like Abilify 30 milligrams, and at first I got the
mm.
akathisia. Uh,
Yeah,
if you haven't heard of propanolol, that stuff is really good. It's like
what to
a
calm you
beta.
down and stuff.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's a propanolol.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a beta blocker. It helps with the restlessness, though.
because I went on Abilify for like a year, but it was
Mm.
horrible for me. Um,
How,
but because I know the advantage of Abilify is that it's one of the modern ones, and also it's kind of weight neutral.
mm,
Where a lot of the other, like I take olanzapine, and that's like, do you know what I mean? It's just like side
mm.
effects, but that's the. So I don't know. I'm a bit chicken to try Abilify again because I didn't like the side effects really.
Yeah. Well, so my mom, she committed suicide about a month ago, actually, and I think it was because of the Abilify. Um,
I'm
she
sorry to hear that,
like,
man. What she's actually passed away.
yeah, she hung herself, actually. Um,
Oh Jesus.
yeah, I know. It's been rough dealing with that and like figuring out where everything's supposed to go, and like they don't make dying
Mm,
easy, that's for sure. Um,
mm,
but I think it was because of the Abilify. She like the biggest thing I noticed is that it's really hard to feel any kind of emotion, whether
yeah.
it be joy or sadness or anything like that.
Mm,
And I think she just either just couldn't live with it anymore because I told her that we'd probably be have to be on medication for the rest of our lives. And I don't know why
So
she did it, but
how you
she
dealing with
did.
that, man? Because like I've lost both my parents as well. But how you dealing with, because that's different. When someone commits suicide, I know I don't know firsthand experience, but I know it can be quite traumatic. So how you dealing with
Yeah.
that?
Well, it's weird. The Abilify kind of makes it so like I'll be sad, but I can't cry.
Yeah.
It's pretty awful. I
Mm,
really hate that about the medication.
mm,
Other than that, it feels like she went on vacation for a little bit while, and I'll see her again. But I
mm.
think that's just the denial stage. Um,
Do
it
you,
hurts a lot, but
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've kind of got spirit. I kind of got strong spiritual, non-religious beliefs,
mm,
um, which help me. Um, there's certain people you can read books by like Brian Weiss, Michael Newton, um, who give you a, a good sort of idea of the spiritual worlds and the spiritual realms.
mm,
Um, so what I'm kind of saying is you might not be far wrong with what you're actually thinking that you might see her again. You might not be far wrong with that.
yeah,
Um, so there are kind of spiritual books out there which give credence to that. But
yeah,
it's non-religious. It's just
yeah. Uh,
it's more about people's experiences with death and stuff.
yeah. Actually, I should look into that. Like I lost my father and my brother about 5 years ago, so uh, yeah, it's like when I lost them, the amount of crying that I did was way more than the
Mm,
amount of crying I've done now, and I swear, I think it's just the Abilify because it really does put a damper on your emotions.
Yeah, I think for me, when my mum passed in 2007, and I was like in a wreck. I couldn't handle it. You know,
Mm,
it was like whatever. It was too bad. It was too seriously intense for me. But my dad
yeah,
passed last year, and that was a lot smoother. So it's kind
yeah.
of like
I
the first ones. So your
first
brother and
one is
the tough
yeah,
ones, yeah. So that I think that might be it. You know,
yeah.
so
I think so too. I honestly do.
so how are you coping with life now, then, Travis?
Um, Pretty well. I have a job working 20 hours a week at
That's good.
Amazon
Yeah.
doing warehouse stuff. It's pretty all right. I've noticed that my energy levels have definitely gone down, mostly because I'm also ADHD.
Yeah.
So without my ADHD medication, it's hard for me to like keep my life together. I'm gonna have to talk to my doctor and see if I can be prescribed like Concerta or something because it gets really bad. I procrastinate too much for my own good.
Do you
Um,
find have you found that you're kind of you become an expert in psychiatric medication when you do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
you become
yeah,
you kind of know all this shit. It's like
yeah.
it just kind of like yeah, it's
Yeah, I kind of had to become an expert in schizophrenia, psychiatric medication. I did a lot of studying of Zen, a little bit of Buddhism, but mostly Zen. Zen helped me out like a lot, trying to get rid of like finding the little meaning in the most random things, which was my problem. Um, Being able to be like, okay, everything's just empty and devoid of meaning, devoid of like any characteristic. Uh, that helped me out a ton. But so studying Zen helped me a bunch. I think it would help a lot of other people too. Um, just like you don't have to like subscribe to Buddhism as a whole, but Zen itself is like a huge boon.
yeah, I think like I've heard about people, like when you're working, you can go through ups and down, and like if you have a Zen attitude and just remain peaceful and calm and balanced,
Mm,
life is a lot easier. So I've heard of that actually, and I
yeah,
try to say, and I think I say to myself, yeah, just be Zen, and just don't let anything affect you. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
just kind of and just even if something gives you something stressful to do, you just think, okay, fine, I'll just, oh yeah, it's not a problem.
yeah.
Everything's the same, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
For me, but it helped me deal with intrusive thoughts. I would get that a lot. Uh, yeah,
they're
dude.
horrible. Intrusive thoughts are horrible.
Yeah, they are. And like due to the fact that I was also thinking of thought broadcasting, like my thoughts would just
Mm,
come in the wildest outlandish things I could ever think of, and it would just sit on my head, and I would look at it in my own mind and be like, "Oh wow, I created that."
mm.
So like learning how to deal with intrusive thoughts, which also did go away with the Abilify, by the way. Um, Learning how to deal with that, it really like it brought me towards Zen and looking at the Zen scriptures and the koans and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think the Abilify is working for you, isn't it? So,
Yeah,
and
for the
and
most part.
yeah,
I still have the hypnagogic illusions, and it only
yeah,
happens at night. It drives me nuts because like right now I'm actually in between prescriptions. I ended up procrastinating calling my doctor, so I haven't taken it in the past like 6 days or something like that,
okay.
and it hasn't been terrible. Like I've been
Huh.
just doing just fine. Like
Yeah.
I think
Do,
the
do you sometimes like get a stash of medication and that sort of thing? But I mean, you haven't. I guess you've run out of medication, but sometimes a lot of people just don't take their medication,
oh,
and then they end up with a cupboard full of the medication,
oh,
and then they start taking it again, and then they say, I mean, I've got a stash of medication because my dosage changes.
oh
So when
yeah.
the dosage changes, the old medication's no good. So they get the new one in. So I got like my own personal stash.
No, I've been actually taking them pretty religiously,
Yeah.
making sure that I take them every day, even if I don't feel like it,
Mm.
that I need it or anything like that. Because just because of what I've read and how like dopamine interacts with the brain and how like
Mm.
stopping a medication like that could potentially lead to another psychotic break.
Mm.
Which, by the way, like, how was your cognitive level after you had your psychotic break?
So, I mean, my job is like in software engineering.
Yeah.
So I'm able at the moment. I took 7 years out where I was in mental health recovery, where I just did volunteer work. I went to therapy groups, and it took me 7 years to get back to the level where I felt confident enough to do a professional, like a job which requires um,
Abstract thinking and stuff.
abstract thinking, logic, all that sort of stuff. So so it took me a while. It took me 7 years to get to that level. Um, yeah. So I was out of work for 7 years, and then in recovery, and that's how I was able to get back into the working environment. But what I would say is my cognitive level has dipped in the past when I was. I reckon it dipped quite severely back in about 2009, um, when I was probably about 34 years old.
Mm.
And that's when I tried to do my resume, my CV. I, it just looked as if a child had wrote it.
Oh
It was
wow.
it was just so simple. I just couldn't I couldn't think properly. But and obviously if you're writing a resume, you're not playing around. You want it to make it as good as possible. But mine it was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Uh, so what? But has it affected you as well?
Initially it did. Like I would say I started noticing a decreased cognitive level about a year after my psychotic break, my first psychotic break, because who knows how many psychotic breaks I've had.
Yeah.
Um, I think I'm guessing around like three of them in that 2 year period. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, initially, like I forgot how to, like the definitions of words. My memory started like, my memory still is very crap, and I think it has something to do with the medications I'm taking.
Medication. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It hasn't prevented me from getting any jobs per se, but it has gotten me
Mm.
fired from jobs.
Do you vape nicotine?
Yes, I do.
I thought I could hear you doing it because I also do that as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
it's like all schizophrenics take nicotine somehow.
yeah. Actually, I heard that nicotine is an antipsychotic as well.
I think so. Yeah, I think because it just kind of soothes. It just kind of soothes the mind, I guess, or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
It does something. It feels good, basically, whatever it is.
yeah. I
Um,
smoked since I was 18,
yeah,
and I switched over to vaping like
yeah,
in 2015. But yeah, like that's another thing I didn't like about Abilify is that whenever I would smoke, I would never feel like satisfied after
mm,
smoking or eating, or
yeah, yeah.
I
That's not
gained a
good.
lot of weight when I was taking Abilify.
Yeah.
I managed to drop a lot of it too with keto. That helped out a lot.
Yeah, I know that helps a lot of people. I mean, my personal stance is kind of veganish, not pure vegan, but kind of vegan 70% of the time. But I don't I don't know. I losing weight is quite I don't know. I'm gonna work on it actually because I need to lose some weight as well.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you: have you experienced any stigma or discrimination following becoming ill with schizophrenia?
Not well. I haven't really told anyone other than my immediate family,
Okay.
and my immediate family, they're very supportive and caring.
Mm.
I all I've heard was like a little bit of like discrimination, I guess, from my uncle, but that's about it. And it wasn't even that
Mm.
bad. It was more like they were empathetic towards my towards what I'm going through.
And why haven't you told anybody about this apart from
Uh,
your immediate family?
well, I'm not really a super social person.
Yeah.
And then secondly, yeah, it does have a pretty bit stigma attached to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was getting to, yeah.
yeah,
It's kind of like it's difficult, isn't it? To say you tell someone that and it's like, yeah, it's kind of it's a difficult one. But it's kind of what we're trying to do here is to bring schizophrenia into the mainstream, kicking and screaming,
mm,
and say, we're real people dealing with this, and we're not mass murderers. That's like 1% of schizophrenic people.
yeah.
99% of schizophrenic people are just trying to get by and just trying to struggle with these symptoms, and that's all it is.
Mm,
So yeah. Okay, Travis, I think we can wrap it up here.
okay.
Um, is there any particular genre of music that you like, which I can tag on to the end?
I like metal.
Okay, cool. I will do that. So I'm just going to say thank you very much for speaking with me today, Travis.
Yeah.
It was quite I quite like it's quite light-hearted. Even though we did touch on some heavy topics, it was quite light-hearted, which was quite nice. So it was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you.
And I hope you enjoyed this little episode.
I did. All right. Thank you so much, Duncan.
Yeah, no problem at all, man.